Verge Ausberry leading the search for a new head coach. Is LSU finally ready to move forward? Locked on LSU. Here we go.
You are Locked On LSU, your daily podcast on the LSU Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Okay, let's get it. It is Locked on LSU, your team every day. I'm your host, Matt Moscona. Thanks so much for making this your first listen. We're free, available wherever you get great podcasts, of course, on YouTube, and part of the Gulf Coast Sports and Entertainment Network. So thank you sincerely for being here with us on this very tumultuous week. Our show today is presented by Mazda. Like our players, we sweat every detail because when you make every move count, pulling off the unexpected is only the beginning. Stay tuned later for highlights in this week's Moving the Game Forward. Mazda, move and be moved. It has been a tumultuous week around LSU, starting with Brian Kelly's firing, subsequently the governor's comments midweek that set off a firestorm around buyouts and the future of the LSU athletic department, their ability to maybe hire and retain good coaches. And then, of course, late Thursday night, Scott Woodward and LSU announced they mutually agreed to part ways. Verge Ausberry named the interim athletic director. Full episode on that, our prior episode, if you want to check that out. As always, shout out to our everydayers. But Friday morning, there was a press conference held with Verge Ausberry, the interim AD, Scott Ballard, the chairman of the LSU Board of Supervisors, and John Carmouche, who's also on the LSU Board of Supervisors, who's the head of the athletic council on the board, the athletic committee on the board, I should say. And I sat in the room Friday morning, and was honestly, it was a very uncomfortable press conference. I have sat in thousands of press conferences throughout my career. And what was so evident is these are three men, and in particular, Ballard and Carmouche, they're not athletic administrators, they're not trained media people, they're not politicians, they're wealthy business people who effectively bought a seat on the board of supervisors. You make donations, you get a favor from the governor, he points you to the board. I mean, that's how it works. And effectively, Brian Kelly gets fired. The governor creates a firestorm. Scott Woodward gets ousted. And there's no leadership at the university to step up and answer these questions. You still don't have a full-time president, so there's no reason for interim president Matt Lee to go answer these questions. So you don't have a new president appointed yet. You don't have an athletic director. You don't have a head coach. Who's going to go answer questions about what happened? Well, a couple of guys representing the board and the new interim AD. And it was so, I felt badly in particular for Scott Ballard and John Carmouche because it almost felt like they were lambs sent to the slaughter. They were sent out there with either unprepared or ill-prepared to do the governor's bidding. And it's very obvious. So what I've done here today is I want to go through some of this. I want to go through this press conference and break this down in three parts for you. So it's very easily digestible. First, you're going to hear what I think is the most important part of this press conference first. And it's about, it references the buyouts and all that sort of stuff, because finally we have clarity there. Okay. We're going to get to that here first. I want to let you hear why these gentlemen say why Scott Woodward ultimately parted ways with LSU. And then I'm going to get into the new coach search, because the most important detail there is that Verge Ausberry, they said, has autonomy to hire the coach. So we're going to get into all of that here. So thank you for being here. First of all, I asked Scott Ballard and John Carmouche, first of all, okay, the governor was adamant about not liking buyouts, $53 million for Brian Kelly. Well, you just fired Scott Woodward. You parted ways with Scott Woodward. He's got about $6.5 million left on his contract. So I asked about who's going to pay Scott Woodward's buyout.
Revenue stream, as I've said before, is generated from the athletic department. It's self-generated funds and or private donations. That's where it comes from. Does not come from state dollars that are allocated towards other things like education. So it'll come from self-generated athletic funds and or private donations.
Self-generated athletic funds private donations. That's where paying Scott Woodward's buyout is going to come from. Okay? Not taxpayer dollars. Remember, Governor Landry, not taxpayer dollars. And I know the semantical, nonsensical argument that he would throw out, like he's done several times, and his other lackeys that are running around yelling at people in the media for trying to clarify this. The point is, letter of the contract, sure. If LSU athletics goes belly up, all of a sudden is just defunct and nobody ever gives a dollar again, the state of Louisiana would be on the hook. It has literally never happened. And there you have the president of LSU's Board of Supervisors saying the funds are self-generated from athletics, meaning ticket sales, TV revenue, all that stuff generated by athletics, not state dollars or private donors. And then the kicker. The kicker came from John Carmouche, who is an attorney, by the way, as well. And he was asked about contract structure for the next coach. Would you see a massive buyout or guaranteed funds like that? And listen to what John Carmouche said.
Well, let me make it clear. The governor had a right to be concerned, and we're working towards solutions. Everything's on the table. But let me make it clear. The state has never, and the taxpayers have never paid for a coach and never will.
And the truth shall set you free. Not me saying it. Not some other bald-headed media guy running around or girl running around trying to fabricate some story to contradict the governor. That is a member of the Board of Supervisors appointed by the governor at this press conference saying in no uncertain terms, taxpayers never have and never will, his words, fund a coach's contract or buyout. Anyone, including the governor of the state of Louisiana, who is trying to purport that, they're spinning a narrative to fearmonger. And this all goes back to why we are right here. Governor Landry owes favors to people who supported him for office. They wanted Scott Woodward out. One in particular who's on the board, Lee Mallett, who tried to get the whole Will Wade back to LSU ball rolling, and Scott Woodward put a stop to it. Ross Dellinger wrote about it at Yahoo. Go cite the source if you want. Anyway, point being, he owed favors, wanted Scott Woodward out, and ultimately Jeff Landry made sure Scott Woodward was out. And in order to do that or to justify doing that, he spun this stupid narrative about how the taxpayers, I'm involved because the taxpayers could end up footing the bill. No, they won't. And if you have a problem with me saying it, then you have a problem with John Carmouche saying it. An attorney who is an appointed member of the Board of Supervisors. And by the way, another, half dozen or so attorneys that I've had private conversations with over the last week that all laugh at the notion that taxpayers would ever pay money for a coach buyout. So scratch that off the list, okay? You got an issue with it? No longer come at me. Governor Landry and his political lackeys who are trying to go out there and till the soil and do all the damage control, go talk to John Carmouche, because he and Scott Ballard both said it in a press conference, point blank, no ambiguity. The taxpayers in Louisiana have never, will never pay for a coach or a buyout. Now, why is Scott Woodward gone? You want to talk about awkward? Oh, you're about to see awkward as these gentlemen try to explain the mess that this week has been. That's next. Locked on LSU, your team every day. This episode is brought to you by Mazda's Moving the Game Forward. For those who believe it's not just about playing the game, it's about redefining it. There are moments that do more than put points on the board. They move crowds, move culture, and keep moving the game forward. This week's moment that moved the game forward, how about Harlem Berry? What an amazing first half that he had in that game against Texas A&M, an otherwise forgettable game. Or maybe the moment that moved the game forward here is moving LSU forward, finally announcing that Verge Ausberry is the interim AD and have autonomy to make this coaching hire. See, when you follow what moves you, the unexpected is only the beginning. And just like there's more to every highlight, there's more to a Mazda vehicle. Mazda, move and be moved. One of the things that I'm sure has surprised or confused or confounded some of you is why Scott Woodward is out. Right? There was a press conference that was, or a press release, which disclosed that LSU and Scott Woodward mutually agreed to part ways. Well, it's a bit odd, though, right? That you say they mutually agreed to part ways, but there's no real reason why that would make sense. Scott Woodward's he left Texas A&M to come to Baton Rouge. He's from Baton Rouge. He went to Catholic High, just 5 minutes from LSU. Family's here. He's been here for 6 years. He's been a successful athletic director. He's hired good coaches. They've won championships. He makes a good living. He's not leaving for another job. Why would they part ways? Why would they part ways? And I want to illustrate just how uncomfortable this is. So I left the questions. There's 3 examples because these men on stage Friday got asked 3 different times in 3 different ways the same question. And I want you to see how uncomfortable they are trying to answer a question for which they really know the answer, but they can't say.
How exactly was it decided that Scott Woodward and LSU would part ways? Did the board and him have autonomy to make that decision, or was the governor involved in that final say?
John, you want to know?
The governor was not involved. The governor is worried about the state of Louisiana. His concern had to do with the state contract. LSU Board of Supervisors and Mr. Woodward decided jointly to part ways.
Is there any human being walking the face of planet Earth, sensible human, who listened to the governor at a press conference on Wednesday say in no uncertain terms Scott Woodward's not hiring the next coach and railed on him, think that the governor had nothing to do? The quote was, the governor did not get involved. Does any rational thinking human believe the governor was not involved in firing Scott Woodward? I mean, if you believe that, then I have some oceanfront property I'd like to sell you in Idaho. Oh, but they had another opportunity because still the question wasn't answered. Well, then why?
Why did you all deem it necessary to part ways? Verge just talked about 6 championships. We're 4 months removed from a baseball national championship. Those things sound like success to the common person. So why was there this mutual agreement to part?
It was a joint decision. The board and Mr. Woodward had discussions, and it was a joint decision. Thought it was the best for both.
Literally no answer. He just repeated the question. It was a joint decision. We thought it was the best. And the man, if you're watching on the left, is John Carmouche. On the right is Scott Ballard, Verge Ausberry in the middle, who I think most fans would recognize if you're watching. Watch them squirm. They're not trained professionals to handle press conferences and think in controversial things like this. And he doesn't have a good answer because the answer is the governor wanted Scott Woodward out. And so we voted Scott Woodward out because the governor wanted him out. But he can't say that. He's trying to defend the governor who appointed him to the position. Like, they need each other. You make the donation to the governor appoints you to the board. Well, then as a gubernatorial appointee to the board, you have to do what the governor says. So if the governor wants him out, okay, well, now you have to go sit in a press conference and explain why Scott Woodward right now is not the athletic director at LSU when there is no logical reason. That's why I'm leaving the question. Like, watch them. And there was one more. Brett Martell of the AP took one final crack at trying to get exactly why Scott Woodward is no longer the athletic director.
I want to give you the opportunity because I think a lot of the LSU fan base and people following this are somewhat confused about the extent to which performance-based considerations led to Scott's departure. Is there anything specific that you'd want to address in that regard?
I'm not sure I understand the question, but if the performance of Scott, and I mean, like John said,
Wait. I'm going to go back to it. Hold on. Wait. Like, the question, there was no ambiguity in the question. Like, again, I feel I'm not making fun or light of either of these gentlemen. Like, they are put in an impossible position. So it's Scott Ballard, who you're going to hear, the chairman of the board, you're going to hear talk. Like, there's a long pause. No one volunteers anything. Then Scott sort of moves the mic toward him and says he doesn't understand the question. The question, which is very, very easy. Listen.
The new president will be announced on Tuesday, and
Sorry, I played the wrong one.
I want to give you the opportunity because I think a lot of the LSU fan base and people following this are somewhat confused about the extent to which performance-based considerations led to Scott's departure. Is there anything specific that you'd want to address in that regard?
not sure I understand the question, but if the performance of Scott, and I mean, like John said, it was a mutual agreement after conversations, and with all the things that come into that, energy and family and what you're doing, and nothing's off the table of why Scott and LSU had a mutual agreement that after those conversations that they mutually agreed that it was a good idea. Scott is a great human being. Scott is a good Baton Rouge LSU Tiger. It had nothing to do with any of that. It had everything to do with the path of both conversations, and they mutually agreed that it was time. It wasn't an LSU thing. It wasn't a Scott thing. So.
I think you get it. Like, we all get it now, right? Like, you get it. Governor, pressured by donors, didn't like Woodward, wanted Woodward out, saw his open door with the Kelly firing, makes the board fire Woodward. Woodward is accepting clearly a buyout to resign or mutually agree to part ways. There's no good reason. Like, there is no good reason whatsoever that he's no longer the athletic director, other than the governor doesn't want Scott Woodward to be the athletic director anymore. The same way that the governor moved the chief legal counsel, Winston DeQueer, last January, and William Tate, and now Scott Woodward. And I think you look and say, okay, well, who's next? The thing that's certain right now is you don't have an athletic director, you don't have a head coach, and you don't have a university president permanent. Now, you are going to have a university president Tuesday, at least one elected. And it is interesting to see if the new president would be involved in the search. And that's one of the things that was asked. Will the new president have any involvement in the coaching search?
The new president will be announced on Tuesday, and he or she or he, we have the three candidates, we're not slowing down for that. Verge is going to move forward and knows what he needs to do. But depending on how that works out and when the new president starts, but the new president will absolutely have input and hopefully hit the ground running. But depending on what the choice is, we've got to also respect that they've got to unwind some stuff as well.
So I think that's an important note, is to say that the new president will have input, but maybe the most singular, most important thing from an LSU football perspective that came of this was giving Verge Ausberry autonomy to go hire the football coach. Now, I want to tell you why that's important and where I think this goes. We'll get to that as we wrap up here. Locked on LSU, your team every day. Well, it's almost the weekend. Time to look back and crown this week's MVP on Who Delivered, powered by DoorDash. Just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash Streaks, saving more every time you order, these players delivered when it mattered most. So let's break it down. Actually, let's just hand it off to Frank Wilson, the interim head coach for the LSU football Tigers, who hopefully will deliver in a big way for LSU when they're back on the field a week from Saturday against Alabama in Tuscaloosa. And just like Coach Frank hopefully will deliver for the Tigers, DoorDash delivers your Saturdays. With DoorDash Streaks, you save every Saturday you order, so stack it up all season, and you could save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday, keep the streak alive, fuel your game day only with DoorDash. Terms apply, promo period through 11/18. And we're brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you miss the start of the game or you want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. I think the reason you're likely watching or listening to this show is because you love LSU athletics. What's transpired over the last week has been a giant distraction and supremely unfortunate. And it has illustrated a lot of instability. But I think the thing coming out of this press conference on Friday that is the most significant is the word that Verge Ausberry, as the interim athletic director, has full autonomy to hire a head coach. Now, Verge said that he's put together a committee, and the two men with him at this press conference, Scott Ballard, John Carmouche, will be on the committee, along with Ben Bordelon, who played at LSU, is a great LSU benefactor, of course, the CEO of Bollinger Shipyards. E.J. Kuiper, who is the president and CEO of the FMOL Health System, of course, under which is Our Lady of the Lake, the championship health partner of LSU Athletics. And then Verge said there's one more who he did not name, but one more addition who will be on that committee to find the next coach. But Verge Ausberry has autonomy, and that's important because now you know who the person is, who the point person is, who can go make phone calls to agents and things of that nature. And Verge made clear like what his objective here is going to be.
Next chapter is we have to hire a football coach. We're going to hire the best football coach there is. That's our jobs. We're going to go out there. We're not going to let this program fail. LSU has to be in the playoffs every year in football. There's 12 teams that make it. It's going to expand here. We have to be one of those at LSU. No substitute.
I think that has to be music to every fan's ears. 12-team playoff. You're going to expand either to 14 or 16. It is plausible to think LSU should be in the top 14 to 16 teams in the country every year. That should not be an unattainable goal for the LSU football program. And that's clearly what Verge has his sights set on. I'll tell you this about Verge Ausberry. And I don't know if he's going to get – I asked Verge at this press conference if he would be a full-time consideration for the job. He declined to answer that. Maybe he is. He's been a finalist for the job in the past. But I do look and say, I don't know how that full-time job is going to go. What I do is Verge Ausberry loves LSU. In many, both public on-air conversations, private conversations he and I have had over many years. Again, I said this is my 19th season covering LSU football. Verge predates me by a decade, at LSU. So, and he played at LSU in the 80s. So even longer than that. Verge has been associated with LSU almost as long as I've been alive. I'm 43 years old. So point being, you got a guy that loves LSU, that desperately wants LSU to win. And so you have a guy running this who has LSU's best interest at heart. And that, I think, is a great thing. Now, the other thing that I think is very important here, and I also asked if there was a timeline to hire a new athletic director, and they said that there really isn't. You'll have a new university president in place who will in time hire the new athletic director full time. So we don't know that yet. So they're not even thinking about that. The singular focus right now is Verge, hire the coach. So you very likely will have a coach in place before you have a full-time athletic director unless it's Verge. But the other question coming out of this week with all the conversations about the governor is how much would LSU be willing to spend? Remember, if you're not willing to do a deal with the massive buyout, the guaranteed contracts, the $100 million guaranteed contracts like they gave Brian Kelly, then you're going to be searching for a different kind of candidate. If you're not you can't get Lane Kiffin or Dan Lanning or Marcus Freeman, the big names in college football, to leave their place to come to LSU if you're not willing to give them a giant contract with guaranteed money. They're not going to leave their stability for a place that's just an incentive-laden, contract. So you'd have to recalibrate. And Verge Ausberry kind of gave some insight there, and it sure seems like LSU is going to open the checkbook.
I was told to get the best football coach there is, and don't worry about that at all. So my thing is, we're going to go out there together as a team, and we get the best contract, get the best coach we have, and whatever it takes to get that person here, we will do.
Whatever it takes to get that person here, we will do. So for all the conversation and wrangling this week about the possibility of how new contracts will be structured and if LSU is willing to guarantee a lot of money or will it be backloaded and incentive laden, if LSU has the opportunity to get the most desirable coach that they want and it's going to cost, clearly the charge he's been given is go get him whatever it costs. So I think it also speaks to a disconnect with the people who are running LSU and giving Verge the autonomy, which really is the board who works for the governor, and what the governor said earlier this week. But it will be fascinating because if we consider how this is all going to play out, the governor, effectively his hand-picked choice for university president, Wade Roos, is likely the one who's going to be elected. And then there's some thought here, of course, that Wade Roos could bring his athletic director from McNeese with him, Heath Schroyer. And then if you look beyond that, the governor appoints the board. So really, all the people in charge at LSU still answer to the governor. And so how much input does the governor have? It'll be interesting. And he wants a different type of contract. But Verge is saying there, he's been told, go hire the best coach. So here's hoping that's what it gets to. Now, the next most important question is, with all of this instability this week, I mean, it has been a PR nightmare, a political nightmare for the governor and a PR nightmare for LSU this week with everything that's transpired. There's been this concern. Is LSU still going to be a desirable place? Or a candidate's going to look and go, do I really want to go coach at LSU with all of this going on, with the loose-lipped governor popping off at press conferences and doing McAfee's show and firing the AD? Like, do I want to be there in that instability? Well, Verge Ausberry kind of laid a lot of that to rest.
We're LSU. My phone is still ringing before, this happened. A lot of people, candidates, still want to come to LSU. It's one of the best jobs in the country. It is the best job in the country at this time. And we're going to find the right person. And I don't see any problems getting the right person to be the head coach at LSU.
I think Verge Ausberry, people will take his call. And if LSU is offering the resources that LSU can offer and a heavy contract, there's a lot of people who are going to want the LSU job. And a big part of that committee, that 5-member committee with Verge, a big part of their job is going to be calming these waters. When you talk to representatives for some of these coaches, to let them know how things got to this point, the plan you have, the direction moving forward, and you have smart people doing that. I mean, E.J. Kuiper of FMOL, Ben Bordelon, Scott Ballard, John Carmouche, Verge, these are smart men. These are smart men who are experienced businessmen as well. And if you can just get things to calm down, it's why one of my giant points about the whole Woodward thing and all of it was governors for all of time, governors intervene and interject their opinion and try to pull political favors and strings and be the puppet master, but you do it tactfully. You do it behind the scenes, so you avoid the big public melt. So you avoid what's happened this week. And Jeff Landry didn't do that. And it hurt LSU this week. It hurt the football program. It hurt the university, the reputation. It had people calling into question things they otherwise wouldn't have called into question because he was careless. So you get these, you need to have everyone calm down, quiet down. You have a president being elected next week. Verge Ausberry's leading the search, who loves LSU. You have a group of 5 very smart people around him that can help calm some of those waters and move forward and try to get a deal done to bring the best coach to LSU with the goal of spending what you have to spend and to be in the college football playoff every year. Not my words, Verge Ausberry's words. So, taxpayers in the state of Louisiana, let not your heart be troubled. You're not going to get stuck footing the bill for a $53 million buyout. Scott Woodward is no longer the AD at LSU, not because of anything he did wrong, but because the governor has an axe to grind and is issuing his will and the will of some benefactors of his that wanted Scott Woodward out for different reasons. And so they very clumsily ushered him out. Don't cry for Scott. He had his dream job for 6 years, and he's going to get $6 million on the way out the door to chill. And now you have some direction for a new coach. So as unstable as this week was, things look like they are calming down now. And hopefully the process can begin. LSU can play its final 4 games of the season, and the Tigers and this group of people can begin the process of identifying the next head coach for LSU to replace Brian Kelly and hopefully to lead LSU back to championships. And of course, as that process takes place, we'll be right here on Locked on LSU. Hey, thanks so much for making us your first listen every day. If you're on podcast, please subscribe on your favorite podcast app. Rate us, leave a review if you're on YouTube. Smash the like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell so you're notified whenever we post a new video. And thanks to everybody watching on the Gulf Coast Sports and Entertainment Network as well. It is Locked on LSU, your team every day.